All right. My name is Rich Schmidt. I'm here with JP and Doris Valot. We're at May 5th, 2021. We're at Linfield University. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
First question to get started, as JP you might remember from the first time. Why wine?
Why wine? But I probably answer the same way. Wine has been the door to go anywhere I wanted to be. From day one, when I was introduced to wine through my family on both sides, they were talking about different places. So they went back to France, they were into Italy, places that I didn't know, but I was wondering that if I can actually go there and work there. So wine has been my ticket to go out from Mendoza, from Argentina.
What about you, Doris?
Well, I always like wine, but honestly, it's been mostly driven by JB. That's his passion, and I think it's fun. I think it's a fun business. I am very friendly. I'm very social, so it's a way of making good, friends. Who doesn't want to hang out around wine? Well, for those of us who love wine, right? So I think that part for me is like gathering people, having people together. I'm the family oriented that is always inviting friends, and so what was the best way of doing it is, with wine, when he talked about the idea originally about making wine, I'm like, yeah, let's give it a try. Worst case scenario, we have tons of wine to give it to our friends,
So tell me, let's start with Doris. Tell me about kind of your life before wine and what you were doing growing up and your education before wine.
Well, I grew up in Puerto Rico, an island, so very far away from the wine culture. Of course, we drink wine, but it's not part of our culture as you see in Europe and in part of the United States. Fun life in an island, but I wanted to see the world. I also wanted to travel. I think that's part of one of the things that get Juan, Pablo, and I together. It's our passion for traveling, meeting other places. So I finished my master in counseling, moved to Miami, and that's when we met. And he suggested Oregon, and so I said, why no? Why not? And I came here to do my PhD. So I always wanted to be a college professor. So that was my main goal. So I was very focused on that, and that's how we ended in Corvallis.
Tell me about your PhD. What is it in, and what have you done with it since you got it?
Well, I have a PhD in Human Development and Family Sciences, and I also completed at OSU a Master in Public Health. And I fall in love with public health, and now in the time of COVID, everyone see the value of public health, but I saw it way before everyone else. I just fall in love with public health, and I knew that I wanted to be a college professor, and I want to work with first generation college students, and Western Oregon University. It's a university that is focused on that population. It was a great fit for me, and I've been working there for 10 years, and I'm now a professor of public health, and I'm the program coordinator for the public health program there.
You mentioned the growth of public health in our consciousness in the last year. Tell me about the growth since you've been a part of it. What captivated you about it in the first place, and how have you seen it kind of grow as you've been involved in it?
Well, everything that we do is public health. Even wine is related to public health, right? Our lives, and I see public health as the well-being of the nation. I always knew that if we care about everyone, we all are in a good place. And I think that this pandemic has shown this, it's not just about individual health, but in order for you to be healthy, everyone else have to be healthy. And I think that the pandemics have shown that to everyone, but it was clear for me that we needed to address it, 10 years ago.
So JP, you mentioned kind of growing up around wine. Take us through when did wine become something you wanted to do as a career, and where did it take you?
Like I mentioned, so part of my family came from France, and the other side of the family, which is my mom's side, came from Italy. So when they, on my mom's side, when they came in, they worked for one of the biggest wineries in Mendoza, which at that point in the 50s, 60s, they were one of the biggest in the continent. Actually, the name is Gargantini. Unfortunately, it's no longer in business. So it will go see. So my grandfather, my great-grandfather, both of them worked for this company, which is owned by a Swiss guy. They actually spoke Italian because it was on the border with Italy. So we'll go see it, and then my grandpa will take me to the winery, and they'll have the winery actually build a neighborhood for all their employees. So they'll have the first maternity for them, the first one, a church, the school. So the winery basically put up a city for all of them. So they were really passionate about working for this guy. And I got that. So basically, on my dad's side, which is the French side, they took care of the vineyard work. So, but it wasn't until I was 16 that I decided I would go for that. Before that, I thought I would be an architect, and I went to high school for that. And then I decided that the drawing, it was fun, but I didn't see myself drawing every day. It's been inside, so I really enjoyed the outside part. And we were surrounded by vineyards, so basically, and that was the main thing for Mendoza, and still is the main thing. So I recall the first time in college that actually they gave us this a few questions, say how you see portray yourself in 5 years, and I didn't see myself as a winemaker. I saw myself as a vineyard manager, or maybe a business guy, but in the wine industry, but in the vineyard side, more about growing grapes, take a look to the vineyards, and back in the time it was all about having your own 4x4 pickup. And so actually they asked us to draw. So everyone was drawing like those rows, and you will see the Andes because all the vineyards you see the Andes in the back, basically on the west side of the province. And below that will be a little guy, which will represent us, and a pickup truck. So I went through the 5 years. I became an engineer, agricultural engineer with a focus on vineyard management and winemaking. And it wasn't until I graduated that actually there was an exchange program to come and see the U.S. And I said, okay, I'll take it, but I thought it would be for the vineyard side. But it was for winemaking. So, and that was my first time in Oregon in 2001, which was Willamette Valley Vineyards. They brought me up here. And so the winery that I spoke with before coming into the U.S., they contacted me after I came back, and they said, okay, well, we want to hire you. And I thought it would be, because we're talking about the vineyard side, but they said, no, you went to a winery over there, we want to keep you in the winery. So they kept me in the winery as one of the junior winemakers over there, and since then I've been just making wine. So it's been almost 20 years. So right now, so I didn't know, well, I knew they have a passion, but I didn't know that I would be enjoying so much making wine. I mean, I still go see vineyards. We used to have our own vineyard not too long ago. But I think at this point, you got to pick a side. You can't just do everything. And this is the problem for us. We're trying to do sometimes probably being too many things. And don't ask her. Don't ask her. But it's good. I love the winemaking side. It's just it's been really passion. It's been opening many doors, more than if you are in the vineyard side. And just want to say that because I have many friends that are in the vineyard side and they don't get to go anywhere for some reason. If you're in the winery side, you're a winemaker, so you're always invited to events, dinners, and so. So I guess I picked the right side.
So
Maybe not.
I have more questions about that, but I want to go back for a second. You mentioned that you met in Miami. I'm curious how you met and what prompted you to want to come back to Oregon at that point.
Well, we were, it was a weird, day, one day that I was not going as a plan, and I decided to go out by myself. And there was this Spanish restaurant, and he was there with his friends visiting in Miami, and they start chatting, and chatting with me, and introduced JP to me, and next day was my birthday. And, we kept talking, we had fun, we kept, seeing each other, and yeah, things just evolved, and we knew that we didn't know what was going to happen. He was going back to Argentina, I'm in Miami, but things happened, and he applied again to Oregon, and
but
we are.
You went down to Argentina, met my family.
Yes.
It's always say that whatever you hear in Miami is not true, because
that's
everyone
true.
make it bigger.
Yeah. So I wanted to see. That's true.
I was true.
I'm a
say
smart
whatever.
girl, so I'm not gonna buy this story of I'm a winemaker kind of thing until I see you actually making wine.
Which is, let me interrupt you, but it's true. I mean, I was just talking about things, and as soon as I say that I was a winemaker, that made her turn her head. So because we were on one of those Miami streets, that I don't even remember the street, but we were talking, and I see her face
Ocean Drive.
Ocean Drive, thank you. So she was just looking into the street, and no, I'll be talking, but she will be turning to me like I just both guys talking, and so as soon as I say wine, she just turned like, yes, okay, okay.
Now we can talk.
Now we can talk. The icebreaker. So wine was that word was the icebreaker, basically.
Yeah.
So then, so went to see, met my family. We did a road trip down to the Patagonia area, in the south, to actually, she met my sister down there. And then we have a great time.
So I confirm. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, all
check, this
there was
too,
like a
check.
checklist.
Okay.
And then, so I applied for the third time for the same program. So I worked vintage 2001 and 2002. I worked for Willamette Valley Vineyards. The third one, I was just looking for maybe something a little smaller, because Willamette was big, and the winery down in Argentina, Catena, was also big. I just want to do something that actually will be able to see from the beginning, from getting the grapes into putting in a barrel or whatever it is. So the whole process of that. So I got hired by Soder. Tony Soder was and James Cahill was the winemaker then. So I worked for them, and we came together. So basically, I flew from Mendoza to Chile, then from Chile to Miami, pick it up. We drove in her car, Pontiac Sunfire, and she packed whatever he fit in the car. And I remember sometimes slamming the brakes, and the whole thing would come forward it was a great trip. I mean, it took more than 5 days, and so we made it to Portland. And then from Portland, the next day we went to Mineral Spring, which is the winery. They were building the winery back in that time, and we met the guys. And then they rent a house for us and some of the other guys from the other wine, all interns. So we were here in McMinnville actually. Well, I'll give them a little detail, probably as I say. But I proposed to her in the house, so in McMinnville, so back in 2003.
That's awesome. I love that. Doris, you mentioned you kind of had an appreciation for wine, maybe not a lot of knowledge about the industry. I'm curious what as you got to know JP and got to see the industry, what your impressions were of the wine industry and what your impressions were of Oregon when you got here.
That is a really good question.
All good questions.
I think that I probably have the impression that everyone has when you're not involved, right? Like sometimes something far away, maybe snobby sometimes, right? Like there's fancy places, making wine. Actually, I always told him, and he jokes about like I pay attention when he say that he was a winemaker. But growing up in Puerto Rico, it doesn't cross your mind that you can be a winemaker because you're from an island, so you're not thinking about it, right? You know about many other professions and careers, but you don't think about winemaking, right? So it was kind of rediscovering, you know, the world, right? And again, you know, we met young. I didn't know much about wine, and it's for me what is interesting is seeing the different cultures, right? Oregon wine culture is very different than Napa wine culture. That France, when we went to France, you know, the wine culture there, the wine culture in Argentina. So for me, it's really what I appreciate about wine is that it's not just the beverage, the drink that you're having, but you are getting a piece of that culture, and it goes beyond terroir, right? Terroir is part of the wine, but Oregon wine represents Oregon, you know, it is the easygoing of Oregon, the more relaxed, and that's how the industry is for the most part, right? And it's not all the time, but for the most part. But then you go to Napa and you have the strong wines, you know, kind of big, and then the industry is like that, you know, huge winery, it's all about. But then you go to France and you get the Bordeaux, you know, like the feeling. It's just different. So I come from sociology, right? So I also see the sociological part of it, and I love it, right? And I love it, and I love that we're making wine in Oregon because I love Oregon wine culture. I love Oregon wine, and I love Oregon wine culture. So from someone who didn't grow up from that, like he grew up in Mendoza, it's wine country. That was not my experience. To someone growing outside of that realm and then seeing Oregon, I don't see myself in another wine culture. I can enjoy other wine cultures, but I always want to come back to Oregon wine culture.
And that's what I actually saw back in 2001. As soon as I got out of the PDX, and they drove me from PDX down to Salem because we have an apartment down there with the winery. I saw that potential. I mean, the industry was growing. It was really small back in that time, only 230 wineries, I believe, somewhere in there, to the 900 plus that we have right now. But they were really welcoming compared to many other places that actually, for example, Mendoza, which have more than 100 years, close to 200 probably, industry that it is welcoming until a point. I mean, it depends what you work for. There is no the relationship that you may have with all the other winemakers in terms of if you have a problem, what you will do. Here, which it was surprising for me, that if you have a problem, you probably call 20 people and get 20 different answers. In Argentina, you have a problem, you can talk to anyone because you may be fired. So it is really different approach. Or someone will say, we'll go in the news, so they can take you down, and will be more sales for another wine. So it was in Argentina, it was more like a survival mode. So all the wines competing for the same markets, and it's all Malbec, and it's all. And I think that probably what may happen here if we just follow just Pinot Noir, and we grow and grow, but there's a point when you start getting more competition for the same outlets.
But again, as I say, each country has their own, you know, reality and social, political, and even, you know, when you think about wine and the history, how it's integrated, right, in different countries and how it's spread. So I think that Oregon, it's for me, it's perfect. You know, it's fun, it's accessible, it's great. Again, I enjoy other countries, and I go to Argentina, and you go there and you have these beautiful wineries looking at the Andes, and it's gorgeous. And I enjoy it, but I want to come back to my Oregon wine culture.
So at this point, you're in Oregon. You're now engaged, and you've been here a couple of years. Tell me, what was your thought at that point? You kind of thought you were going to head down the viticulture path, and now you're on the winemaking path. What were you planning at that point? What were you hoping for, and what was sort of the next step for you?
Well, after my first visit to Oregon, and this was a kind of like a Spain, I think. So they were like almost 3 months with the winery, and then maybe another 2 months traveling. So I went to Las Vegas, LA. I went to anywhere. I took funny because I took the Greyhound. I didn't know about the Greyhound, but I took the Greyhound from LA to Savannah, Georgia. So I just crossed the whole country on the Greyhound. It was like 23 buses and non-stop. So you get one chain, and anyway. So that was a great experience. So when I get back to Argentina, so basically I saved all the money that I needed to pay back my dad, because in the same year he actually paid for me to go to Europe. So I was in Europe, then came to the US. And so I saved all that money and a little money to come back, because I saw there were more things, and just take a look to the potential of the state. And we actually got me in the thinking about staying here is all the wines that were here, so 60% or more, they were only making under 5,000 cases, which is crazy. I mean, it comes from a winery, or most of the wineries that are in the millions down in Argentina, and all of them will have a winemaker. So if in Argentina, for 1 million cases, you have probably 3 winemakers, and that's it. So there's no money for winemaking. So basically, in order to get to the top, so there was too many things. I mean, I really loved the green part of Oregon, the cleanness. I mean, the whole welcoming. And I came right after September 11th. So I came here on September 21st. My trip was actually, I was leaving Argentina on the 14th, but everything happened, and then everything got pushed out. So the problem was when I met Doris, because that changed. And if she was from Argentina, probably would end up in Argentina. But there were so many things that where we're gonna be, where we can actually have a good living and possible family. This is back in 2003. I mean, all the checklist was just Oregon. Basically, I have a job offer there. There were not that many bilingual professionals in her side or area of expertise. But the problem that was that for my mom, for example, she thought that this would be like a 2 or 3 year deal, and then I'll come back with a lot of skills, and then I just get the best job in Mendoza and move on from there. And well, it's been 17 years. So, I don't know, man. It's so easy coming from a country which you have to row a lot in order to get things. There's the social part that actually Doris mentioning. I mean, the economic issue, turmoil that we have in Argentina every 5-10 years, everything goes down, and all the money you save is gone, and then it's just a nightmare compared to here. That if you do a good job and you have a good job, it's all full of opportunities. I mean, it's just the land of opportunities, and that's I recall. I mean, it's kind of slogan, but it's true. I mean, if you know what you want, I think that's the important part. If you have in your mind what you need to do in order to get to a goal, you can achieve it. I mean, it could take time, but that's it. So it depends on you how much you want to do. And our business came, the idea, I would say in 2012, we actually we built or found our LLC, which is Valot Wine Cellars. And we didn't do anything with our label. I was making wine, and I was selling to another wineries, and they put their own label on it. And we were actually saving all that money in order to have a capital for starting our own label, which is not cheap, I can tell that. And so we released our label in the end of 2017, but the label per se, just the label, took almost 2 years because we couldn't agree on what we want to have on the label. And I recall this, and this is something that actually Doris said to me. Say, if this is gonna be our family label, I don't want to be just a label. I just want to be a label or have all the meanings or something that is actually related to us. So, and then came the name, the Valcan. So Val is for Valot, and Can is for Cancel, her last name. So it's just 50-50, three letter. And so then was the part about how to kind of introduce Doris to the industry because she's more on the teaching now. And I thought that would be, what would be on the label would be related to her. And that's why we got the petroglyph. They come from the Caribbean. You can find them in Puerto Rico. This is called the Taínos. It's a tribe that actually from the area. They call Araquats. Araquats on the east side of the country. And I fell in love. I think there was their logo. There are two birds that are kissing, and I can picture myself and Doris on those birds.
But going back to your question, because JP sometimes can go, we didn't envision this from the beginning, right? It was a process. So we are new.
I did.
Well, maybe he did, but the reality is that the wine industry, if you don't come from a family or from that background, and it's not always easy to start business in this area. We are not from the business in Oregon, but we are not from Oregon. You know, we didn't grow up in this area. So there was many layers to the process that had to happen before we could be where we are right now. And I am the pragmatic, he's the dreamer. I always knew that it was not gonna be just you want it and it happened, right?
As I mentioned.
That there are things that, like have to happen, and it's been, so many years of building a capital between the two of us. We always have worked full time. This is entirely our own work. So I was always very cautious. I always saw this in stages, right? Like I always thought, yeah, sounds good to have a lot of wine for friends, yeah, sounds good to have our own small label. But it's been, like maybe he dreamed about it. I always knew that this was gonna be a process. And I still sometimes I like wait let's keep growing, and we have a family and we both have careers outside of our wine label, and so in my head I saw myself retire having some sort of wine related business, not necessarily what happened right now. I didn't expect to start a wine label the same year that we had our first child. But so it's been, for me, it's been a process, but again, I'm very pragmatic. So I see the potential of what this is gonna be, but I'm always realistic and take things slower. And I love that he's a dreamer. But when we moved to Oregon, if you asked me back in 2003 if this was gonna be our story, I don't know if this is the story that I would have been telling you.
Well, the reason, I think that I expected that, but without, so I'm the head winemaker for Silver Ridge Winery, and without their support and allowing me to make the wines under their same roof, it probably would have happened that soon. I had to recognize that I had that privilege that not many winemakers have, and so that's the passion right there between the what I do for Silver Ridge and what I do for Valcan Cellars,
and how supportive they've been of JP. And the former owner who passed away, Liz Chambers, that she was very inspirational, and she was a tremendous support for us and for JP. I always believe in him and his capacity, and so it has been a process, like I don't want people to look at our history and like, oh yeah, it's so easy. No, it's not.
Make wine.
It's not. It is a process. especially if you're an outsider.
And it is money too. I mean, any mistakes, if you don't, I mean, if you look at the industry right now, many in the industry come from somewhere else. The tech, the pharmaceutical. I mean, all money into making a dream that will probably turn into a nightmare if you don't have enough money to back up. Because I mean, any mistake, you just go down because you don't have, you're just living on selling, and all that money goes back to the winery. And there's this whole cycle of, if you're making red wine, if you're making white wine, if you're making red wine, you probably see no money coming back in 3 or 4 years because they had to spend a year or 2 years in barrel. It's an amazing industry, amazing job, but it's kind of, you stress out all the time. I mean, not stress out in a bad way, at least with that, but it's not easy. Like, for example, last year with the pandemic, so the whole thing went down. And not just that, so in September we got all these fires, and the whole thing went down. Like in a whole year, you may be out. Not because you didn't have Google lines or anything, it's just because life took a different path and you're out. So
I think that's going, thinking about the question of me being an outsider, and now I think that this is what people don't realize about wine, how complicated, how delicate, how fragile the process can be, right? Like let's open a wine, but there's so much things that you cannot control. The weather, the fluctuations in the market, and again, like all of these things. A movie, that ruined what happened with Merlot and Sideways, right?
Yeah.
Who can tell the Merlot producers that was going to be a major, driver in declining sales in Merlot? So that's an example of, so for me, that is fascinating, right? Discovering all of that. And now I'm more into that. I'm always like reading and following different trends. I think that I'm more. So, because I trust him, he's gonna make good wine. I don't have to worry about that part. I just worry about everything else. What is happening globally with wine, the wine industry? What is happening, like women in wine, right? Like we keep talking about it, but when you think about consumers, wine is highly consumed by women. This is something that we should be, in so many ways, catering and getting women engaged, more in the business. But that is not always the case. So that is my side, right? Again, the social, I'm paying attention to these trends, and for me that part is fascinating. And again, 20 years ago, I would never oversee, like what was happening now, and the passions that I have developed with the wine and with the label. And again, I trust him with the wine. I take care of everything, like what is happening outside.
I'm going to come back to Valcan Cellars in just a second, but Kitty, you mentioned your sort of your day job at Sylvan Ridge. I'm curious about that, finding that job and sort of settling into that role and sort of developing your own style in your wine. So tell me about how you ended up there and sort of your progression through your work there.
So in 2005 actually. So 2003 I worked for Tony Soder's Vineyard. Then I went to work for Joe Dabbs when he started his own company, that family estate and Wine by Joe. We were in Forest Grove, so we were living in Tualatin. In 2005, after probably a year working with Joe, Doris got a scholarship for doing her PhD program, but that was for OSU. And when she was so excited about it, she said, I want to start going to college. I said, okay. And we got to move. I said, okay, where are we going? And she said, Corvallis. And I didn't got a clue. I mean, where was Corvallis actually? So I look on the map. So back in that time, not so much Wi-Fi, internet, the whole thing. You just city was Corvallis, and it'll pop up. If the city can understand what you're saying, because most of the time doesn't. Sorry, I have an iPhone, I have a problem with Siri. And I look, so I'm working for a row, and I see Corvallis all the way south. I say, that's more than 2 hours drive. So she said, I know. Okay, so I may have to look for another job then. I say, yep, I think so. And I like, okay, I don't think there's that many opportunities for winemaking. I mean, that's so this is probably in 2005, maybe what, 400 winery. So we look on the winebusiness.com and there was one job offer for assistant winemaker at Silver Ridge, and that was done in Eugene. And I said, well, that's 1 hour. And I said, well, I'll apply, and then I got the position. And I said, okay, well, we just move in and I'll commute. And when I got the position, something that I didn't know is that they were doing, it's two major things that I didn't know. I took the job no matter what, but there was, like I said, plus. And that was that we were doing 4 10s. So 4 days, 10 hours. Except for harvest that you go more often, but I said, oh, that's great, because I'll commute 110 miles per day, but it will be 4 days. So I'll have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. And then the other thing was, the other plus was they were making Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Merlot, Cabernet Franc. There was a little Malbec there too. And I said, wow, I didn't know. Because I came to Oregon to work on Pinot Noir, but I come from a place that actually Pinot Noir was one little variety compared to many other ones beside Malbec. And I said, well, I just meet the big reds. And so I took the position, and in 2012, many things changed in that year. So basically it was actually say that the war would end in that year. And everyone was thinking about what's going to happen. It's going to be the apocalypse, the whole thing. But many things changed, and so we decided to open the LLC, sorry, the company. I was appointed to be in the Oregon Wine Board, and we have our first son, Francisco. And I was promoted to head winemaker at Silver Ridge. So basically, the whole thing changed. Probably it was the end of the world for what I was doing, into a major role, which will be with the direction that I wanted for the winemaking, for the label that we were making, the wines that we were making, and thinking about family. And so, but it wasn't until I got also with the board that actually we were having meetings in different AVAs within Oregon, and that was eye-opening. Because you see the different AVAs that I knew about it, but I didn't get the chance to, and because we worked for the Oregon Wine Board, we were always really welcoming, and and we'll get to see and try different wines. And I said, wow, I like the style, I like the other style. So I combined some of the knowledge that I got in Argentina, which it wasn't that much, because basically I worked for almost 3 years in Argentina, and that was between here and there, because I came out after college. So, but I took some of that, and one of the key was in the past, there was kind of recipe for making wine that would say that when you're fermenting the grapes on the red wines, you'll keep the wine or the moss wine or the juice wine until they get dry with the skin. And in Argentina, there was a different vision on that you don't need to just go that. You can press it off way before that. I mean, maybe right before it gets dry, and in order to get more round wine, more soft tannin. So that was something that actually struck me right there, because it was a new way to have wine that won't need to be in barrel or aging for that long, and they can hit the market earlier. And if you can hit the market earlier, that means you're saving a lot of money too, and you getting money back sooner. And that's key for many businesses. I recall a guy, I won't say the name, but started a sparkling house, but he wanted his wine to stay 10 years in Sur Lake. So 10 years with the lease before hitting the market. So when he started, he didn't get any money until 10 years later. So that's great, but that's crazy. You have to have tons of money in order to do that, otherwise you just run out of money. And so that was kind of thing. And then like Doris was saying, the trends, what people looking, and I think everyone should know that the people looking for new things all the time. And I don't know if it's because of social media or what it is, but you want to try new things all the time, which is great for us because Valcan is being able to provide many new wines. And actually, one of the examples would be the white Malbec, which is we made it in 2019, and that's the first in the country. And that gave us a lot of positive media. I mean, articles, people trying for the first time, and it was a great wine. So we made that second one, and we still believe we're still the only one making that wine, and which is good.
Well, in my humble opinion of someone that do not come from the wine industry, one thing that I think that JP in his evolution in Sylvan Ridge, me seeing him trying to be as objective as possible, right? Is that I think that when JP became head winemaker, and I think part of the influence of the Oregon Wine Board, JP fell in love with Southern Oregon grapes, and I think he started, really making good, great wines, Tempranillos, Malbec. I think that that's where actually I see him blending his side from Argentina, his experience in Oregon. I think he saw Southern Oregon and the weather and the grape, and he's like, wait, this is, wealth here. And I think that, I think in Sylvan Ridge is known, for some of these wines from, the Malbec and the Tempranillo. So I think that I from the outside, I think that that's one of the places where I think that he grew up tremendously professional as a winemaker is when he was like, there's this gem here in Southern. He's still, he's great with Pinot Noir, and I love that. But I think, he just, I don't know how to explain it, but his wines, okay, this is me biased. but
okay,
I think that, like JP Syrah,
got all that, right?
His Syrahs, like just yesterday, he does this all the time. He opened wines that doesn't have a label, right? So what do you think? He's like, he put me that pressure. And yesterday he offered me this wine. He doesn't say anything. He's just try. And I had this sip, and I'm like, it's such an amazing wine. He's like, I'm glad that's Syrah 2018.
That's our Syrah.
And I think he has gone, he has grown as a winemaker. He's so comfortable, right? Again, and I have seen of everyone, I have seen him grow, professionally, from being a rookie starting in Oregon to who he is now. And I think he's so confident, and his reds are so amazing, but then he's not willing to take risk. We can tell you a story about the white Malbec, but I was like, what is this guy doing?
So she was the first one to try the wine, and she didn't like it at all, which is kind of like, oh gosh. I
told you, I'm more the pragmatic, the one that can hold him.
I said, nope, I don't like it. I said, oh God. But it was my mistake because the wine wasn't finished. It wasn't before filtration, it was just finished fermentation, and it was still easy and the whole thing. But I wanted to get it, start like approaching her to the new style of the wine and the new whole concept. But I did a bad job on that. I had to admit that
He didn't sell it well to me.
Yeah,
so,
true. I underestimate her because she's always, she won't lie, basically. She's always will say that I don't like it. Even if I want to go through that or not. Most of the time that I go, when she says I don't like it, I go through. I'll make a mistake, but except this time. So basically, we get it to try to people coming to our tasting room in Corvallis, and I'll pour it for them. I'll say, obviously, it's a red, it's a red variety made into a white wine because it still has some color there because Malbec has too much color. As soon as you crush it, it just leaches some more color there. And they will never figure it out. I mean, it's so different between if you try a red Malbec compared to a white Malbec, it's too thin, day and night, basically. And they always call it it's like a knight on the one side with the armor and the horse and the whole helmet, the whole thing just. So that's Malbec, so medium plus body to full body wines. And this white Malbec is the same guy, but it's a gentleman. It's just the guy without anything. It's just a guy on sandals, for example.
And for the record,
So
now I love the white wine.
Yeah, so that's why I think people get so much in love with that, because it's a totally brand new one. It's mind blowing in the same way because you don't know what to expect, and when you had that in mind, you just it's a blank piece of paper, and then you just draw in there what you think it is, and it's so much of the bouquet. I mean, the bouquet is just amazing. It can get so I call it between it will be it's either Sauvignon Blanc with a Viognier, so some on the tropical side with some of the not that funky, but you get a little bit of the pink grapefruit in there, and then it's so tropical too, and it gives you the feeling of something really sweet, like sweet fruit basically. And then when you try it's not sweet. Then you get, oh wow, this is not sweet. I say, yeah, because in your mind already it's dry. But it's smooth, silky, refreshing, dry acidity. And this is something that actually I'll mention right now before I forget. Comparing some of the wine that we were making in Argentina and Mendoza, because it's so hot, sometimes it doesn't get that much of the acidity. So here you get that dry, natural acidity, refreshing, especially in the wine Malbec, which make the wine really long-lasting, and you get when you swallow, you get more that you give you I get more pineapple, for example, something like that. I say, let me try it again. And then they invite it to another sip, and then you just, it's so easy. I mean, it's really low alcohol, around 12%. So it's a really great wine. And I always wondered why no one was making it before, or what was the problem. I mean, it's not that easy to make. I just have to say that you have to understand what you want to achieve in that part. But if you have a picture of what you want, I mean, you can achieve. So the grapes are complicated. There's not a lot of Malbec available anymore. The Oregon Malbec is taking off, and there's more places that are making Malbec. So to make a white Malbec is way more complicated to make a rainbow because of the pricing too. So, but I saw as an opportunity to make. I think we did great. So based on that, we come out this year with the second wine that actually one of them gave it to you, which is the sparkling side of the Malbec. So something that actually was always wondering is being more getting into bubbles. Mm-hmm. And bubbles is always enjoy bubbles. Any color, doesn't matter, people enjoy bubbles. So most of the time you'll drink either a white wine, sparkling, or a rosé, but it's why we don't make into a red, and how red we can go before we get tannic and you gotta get away. For example, the one that I tried were from Australia, but they were sweet, and they were full body but sweet, so kind of didn't like that concept. So I tune up into, okay, how much time I can leave the juice in contact with the skin in order to avoid the tannin, but I get the enthusiasm, the color on there. So, and I don't know, this is brand new to me. Everyone say, oh, I love this. I mean, this is so fun.
I'm laughing because, as I told you, I'm an academic, let's read, let's test, let's prove things, right? So we were still kind of recovering from the scare of the Malbec, you know, he took the risk, right? And I was, you know, like, people love it. Okay, great, I'm feeling comfortable. We tested, people love.
Boom.
And he's like, let's
Boom.
go.
Second one.
Like, I cannot take so much risk.
But just on the count for the record, get used to it, because it's coming more.
No, but it was
Coming more wine.
and you know, and I think that's why, you know, in some ways we work well together, right? Like, because I think we help manage, and I think that he takes risk, but he knows that I am like, if you make a mistake, I'm gonna tell you, I told you so. So I think that also made him not being kamikaze, right? Like, he is being cautious also, like, let's explore, but let's be cautious. And I love that, right? It's like, and I think he's creating great things, because my voice in his head, watch out, you know, don't overdo it. And he managed his creativity and my pragmatism, and boom, we have a white Malbec and a great sparkling
and red. So we have the white Malbec, white Malbec, rosé of Malbec, and sparkling red Malbec. So that's what we call the trifecta. And it's true. I mean, I like to innovate. I mean, I think for a small brand, that's probably what could keep you alive. But it's also, these businesses are legacy. I don't see myself working full time I just want my kids to do this. One of the reasons, probably one of many other reasons that actually I was able to stay in the US, because we didn't have a family business down in Argentina. If my dad had a family business, probably we end up in Argentina working down there. But I didn't have that, so basically, but that was my dad's dream, actually. And I always say that the Valcan Cellars is kind of my dad's dream, they became my dream, and now it's my kids' dream. So basically...
If they want to.
Of course, if they want to, but at least, well, I always say that if we want to have our kids nearby, then this could be one thing. If they like it, I don't know, if they don't like it, that's fine, that's fine. There are many examples in the Oregon industry that you see that the kids want to work with their parents and kids didn't want to work with their parents, and that's fine. I mean, it's an option, but I'll take it if this could actually get my kids to work with us.
And I'm Puerto Rican, so if I can keep my kids next to me all their life, I am more than happy. I have no problem. Look, in Puerto Rico, it's common for parents to build a concrete house, and then sometimes their kids will build on top of it and live. So we can do the same with Valcan, that would be great. But
maybe not they have the kids on their own, maybe the kid next door or something somewhere in there, maybe.
Americanized more, they can live, you know, up
I say
to,
close.
you know, like in a radius of 30 miles. that I can deal with that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, as you were starting Valcan and you were thinking about what you wanted it to be, how did you start when it came to like finding grapes and to creating those first wines, and what are you looking at as you look ahead for the next creative challenges? So
and I think I got, like I mentioned before, I think I got lucky on this because working with Silver Ridge since 2005. And buying for the winery for so many years from the Rock Valley, I knew many growers and I knew many new ones. So basically, I started making on my own wine. Like I say, in 2012 we were selling most of the wine, but I got growers that I ended up taking them into the seal one that actually I saw the potential. So I've been using kind of my brand has been like the lab. Mm-hmm. So where I practice new things, I try to, and then many of those things go back to the main winery too. So finding grower wasn't that complicated. Because I've been in the industry for almost 20 years. So we're probably still outsiders for so many people, but we have a life here basically. After 20 years, we probably all feel, I came here when I was 25, so it's pretty close to say that I've been almost equal time in Argentina here. So people that knew me, people that I know that I was also the head winemaker for Silvan, so there was many people say, hey, I have a friend here, but something that I know that will be able to Because when we built Valcan, it was more focused on the market. Doris was,
In between, we also had a daughter. So
yeah,
we
so
have
then
two little ones.
2014 we
Yeah.
have Evangelina born. So I said, okay, we'll do the market. And then I said, okay, so if I come out with just Pinot Noir, I had to be fighting with so many Pinot Noir that I said, well, what will take mine and how much I can sell? And I said, well, that's, okay, what about, so if you rely Valley, you should obviously have to make Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris. But I want to start not with whites, because whites you only have a window of a year or 2 seasons basically, you spring and summer. And if you don't get to sell it, bye. So the market won't take anymore unless it's Chardonnay and some producer only, nobody. So then I said, well, reds, you can keep them longer in the barrel if you need it, and you can actually age it more time in the bottle before going to the market. So that will allow you to give a more flexibility if you don't sell off in a full year. So we start with reds, and I say, okay, well, we don't do many different ones, but a small amount. So between 50 to 100 cases. So we come out with 10 different wines. And that will be almost 700 cases total. And I got this question, and someone said, well, why so many? Well, I was working the market with one of my distributors, and we went to this bottle shop. And the guy said, well, I love the wine, but why so many wine? And so I turned around and said, why you have so many labels here? Why you don't have wine? I said, the same way, because there's so many different consumers. And nobody knows me. So basically I had to be, my goal right here is out of these 10 wines, if I can get all these 10 wines in your place, awesome. But if I can, maybe 4, maybe 2, at least 1. So if I can get through the gate and get in your plate, people will know me right there. If they try it, maybe ask you for more wine, and they will be calling me and say, hey, why you bring some other one that I like? The main issue was the money side, how much you want to get for the wine. And this is the sad part of the market, because either the distributor and retailer, they don't want to spend money on it. So they want you to give it for, no, I won't say for free, obviously, but they want you to work the market with them. There's so many things that actually for a small company is complicated, man, because if we don't get the money, we may be out the next year. So pricing the wine was, and I know they want to be on the bottom, but can be on the top, some in the middle, that will make sense. And we have a short story about comics to me with, we were pouring some of our Chardonnays, and I mean, that Chardonnays are 18 and 16, which is kind of the lower side of the Chardonnay compared to many others. And there was a guy tasting the wine and said, oh, I love this, how much it is? 18. And he looked at me and said, what's wrong? What's wrong with what? Do you like the wine? No, I love the wine. What's wrong? Why so cheap? Okay, you can pay more if you want. I mean, like, but I said, well, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know why you ask me that question. I mean, I feel bad about it. I mean, should I charge more? I mean, I was charging what I thought was actually ideal for the business and everything, and in order to make into more places, but not on the cheaper one, not on the top. Now everything is more expensive, obviously. So that was the challenge right there. And unfortunately, because wine is a luxury item, if it's too affordable, it may be perceived as a bad quality. And it's too expensive, maybe high quality, which is kind of stupid anyway. But so yeah, you gotta be somewhere that actually you can make a living. But also, I mean, wine is it's complicated, it's expensive.
And one thing that for me, it's been important, I mentioned in the beginning, that for me it's about friendship and family, right? And when we think about our wines, I want to have wines that many people can have, that my friends can go and enjoy them. And actually, it's great. You know, I love when my friends email me, "Hey, look what I'm having," you know, and when I mean friends, I'm talking about colleagues, you know, the people in the community, and I want people to enjoy great wines and not have this barrier of this is something that just certain people can attain. And but I want the quality, right? And he works on that, and he does it. But I want our, when I envision when we were building our brand, right, building our brand book, I told the people helping us, I said, this is what I envision. I envision a lovely yard, a long table, a lot of people eating good food, chatting, listen to music, and drinking our wines, right? So other people may imagine these luxury restaurants. No, for me, Valcan is that. Let's get together, as families and friends and enjoy a good time. And something that Juan Pablo said that I love is that when you have a special occasion, you take your wine, right? So for me, it's be at a price range where we are the common guest in people's celebration and special events, right? In Eastern, and when they're celebrating a graduation. I mean, I see, we live in Corvallis, like when they're celebrating a graduation, PhDs, all of that. We want to be there.
And like she mentioned, so I always have a lesson with my grandpa that I said on the Italian side, long table, full of food, full of wine. That's what I actually perceive for Valcan. Now she knows this already, so I can maybe mention. So we'll have 2 more labels that are coming out, and something that I wanna. Also my dad, because he said, "Where I have my wine?" I said, "Where's your wine?" I said, "Well, I want my name on the label." I said, "Okay, thank that. Now put pressure on me." So will be 2 more labels. So it will be after both of my last names. So it will be Famille Valot, which is family, Valot family in French. And that's 2 honoring my dad's side, and then Familia Giorlini, which is my mom's last name, which is the Italian side. So we'll split up a little bit on those 2, and it will be either more smaller than the other ones. The idea is just so one of them will have my dad's name, Cesar, and it will be based on Malbec blends. So Malbec will be the core, and then for my dad, all making a Malbec Cabernet Sauvignon blend, which is something that he likes a lot. And he's still a wine broker down in Mendoza, so he doesn't know this yet, so hopefully he won't be watching this. He doesn't speak English, so probably he doesn't even know what I'm saying, or myself. Then I will be a Malbec Cabernet Franc, and that we call Francisco. And Francisco is her dad later, and it's also our son, and that's also my grandfather, and also all the Francois that came from France. So Francisco is a big name for the family.
For both families.
For both families, so it's in the family. The family. Gosh, we're using the in the family, both family. And then on the Giorlini side will be with Mostri Italian varieties. So will be one is called. So we'll have a Barbera, a full Barbera, and that will be called Maria. So Maria is my mom, Maria Rosa, and my sister, Maria Natalia. And then I'm making like a Super Toscan. So I'm doing a Sangiovese Cabernet Franc, which will be Evangelina, which is our daughter. And she's kind of that one. I mean, she's the one, the super one. It's, so these are the ones, so basically I'm honoring mostly our family name and people with names on wines. So, and again, the way that we had these, we probably, what I see is in the future, our kids, our grandkids, if we have them, will remember that. And we'll have maybe memory, but they also will be once you think about it, something that you probably mentioned, something that you can say, you take to your friend and say, hey, this is my grandparents, so these are where this, and now we work this, and I don't know, so many things that, I don't know, like Doris said, I'm a big dreamer, and but dreams come true. But you have to dream what you want, and you gotta be specific what you want, because sooner or later it will show up. The dream will show up, will be, and it could turn into a nightmare, like it happened in many things before. We won't get into detail yet, but
that's my role. Make sure that it doesn't become a nightmare.
Well, I love that, and I know you mentioned earlier your own vineyard. I'm curious about where that plays into what you're working on.
We had, since that was my dream at some point, we looking for more grapes. I found a place that was Let It Go in Monroe, and so it's a small vineyard, 3 acres. They were just abandoned for 3 years. It was just in a really bad shape. I told Doris after I made the lease with the guy, and she didn't like that, and I apologize for that again and again and again, so many, but now on the record. But it was something that I didn't want to let it pass. It will be, I can actually use what I learned from college in order to put it back in shape. I always like to fix things, and I see potential. And that place was neat because it was unrooted. So normally most of the vineyard right now, they have rootstock and clone. So the guy planted back in the 80s didn't know what there was no rootstock, it was unrooted, no clone, no nothing. So who knows? I mean, so I got it we made the deal in 2012, which is actually one more thing to add to that year. So I started working in 2013. We got a prune back really heavily, so there was no cluster basically in 2013. So there's no, I don't even know if they were red, white, or what the color was, because there was no cluster. So 2014 was the first vintage, and I started, so that's the first vintage, and also that we have our daughter. So my time was actually getting into where I can afford that much time. But I started doing it, so I subcontract people, I will drive the tractor, spray, I will do most of the things. And I love that part. I mean, if I had to work hard, I will do it. But it was just taking off. Then something that if you actually go back to 2016 when I did this interview, and I was mentioned political change in the future and about the shortage in the labor force, that was true. And I know that, and back in the time in 2016, we had two little ones. The problem with two little ones is that too little, but too big for one guy. And it was just really bad size. And so unfortunately, both of them were unrooted, so we got phylloxera there. So we were start losing vines year after year, so we're losing like 20% of the vine. So 2018 was our last vintage in there, and then we just went out. The owner didn't like the idea of planting new one, which is, I did that, but then he was complaining about the water that was using for the small vine. So we actually harvest all the Pinot Noir and the Pinot Gris. And I went through, after the truck left with the grapes to the winery and the picker went home, I spent like an hour there, and I actually cried. I was touching the wine and said, okay, I'm done, man. This is my chapter right here. I may get emotional on that. Sorry. But I said I need more time for the family. I need more time for the label. And I say, okay, I took side and say, okay, I just want to make more wine, sell my brand, build our brand together, and have the kids actually spend time with the kids. Mm-hmm. So, I got more. I feel myself, I picture myself still like touching the leaves and everything. So it's and it's something that it may sound cheesy most of the time when we say it's about passion, but it's true, man. This show is about freaking passion, because sometimes you get some money, and then when you get the money, you don't enjoy it, but you gotta pay another bill over there, another bill over there. So, but it's this little detail moment when you build something, And it's there, and you grow things. I love growing things. When I see a seed, and then I see a plant, and I see fruit, it's just, and I see my kids that way. And sometimes they say, "Oh, our kids are getting so big." I say, "Good," because that's our job. For God's sake, they need to grow. They need to grow, and they need to do their own thing. So that's our job. And I know, I mean, I wish it could be a little baby sometime, and now they show their own attitude, and like the wine when they're in the barrel age, I mean, when they need to spend, if that's like I call myself with the aging in barrel, it's more like the teenage stage, because they go through whole process and they figure out what they want to be and how they're becoming what's going to be in a few years. So,
And you have very little control over what's going to happen.
yeah, sure, a lot of control. But the only thing that I giving them options for the future. If we actually keep it, and that Doris is a great partner on that side too, that actually either way, she may not like what I do sometimes, but it's always it's kind of calculated risk. I mean, it's not like we will spend 20 grand and then if we lose, we lose. There's no gambling. I mean, sometimes winemaking is gambling, I will put it that way, but it's not like going to the casino. That it could be 50-50. No, we'll try. I understand the business. I'm in a different page right now that I see where is the industry going. But not just the industry here, because what my neighbor doing maybe affect me or may not. But I know what the consumer are looking for, which is the key right now. If you can provide the consumer what they want, or provide something that actually they may want that they didn't know, and those are the innovation with the different wines that are never made before, and they're really high quality.
So how do you attract consumers? What's sort of the marketing philosophy behind your brand, and what do you see that expanding to in the future?
So, can I talk more about the branding? I am, as I said, we started small and local, okay? And I think that for me, Corvallis market is super important. It's my community, and I want to see, I want to become the wine of choice for Corvallis to begin with, right? And I am an academic, right? So I like things to test and research, and I think that part of the brand is that local, family owned, because it's true who we are, right? It's true who we are. It's a small, locally owned brand. We want to make our brand accessible and represent the diversity of the people. So when you look at a lot of our ads, we try to find, people who reflect who our customers are. We definitely are kind of looking at young professionals or professionals with families. But also we have a market in Puerto Rico. Our wine is brand and sold in Puerto Rico, and that is a market that we pay attention, and part of our branding.
And it's a big market actually, which actually we didn't know that. But.
And it's a way of keeping true also to my roots, right? Like to who I am. So and our, when you look at our brands, the idea is simple, back to basics. But elegant and enjoyable, not pretentious, but great. And I think that is hard to do, right? Like how you balance that when you stay true to you think wine through history, it's about getting people together. Right? And that for me, it's the label, getting people together. So our brand is about getting people together. And we may have different strategies when we work with different populations, but we use most of our right now followers are locals from, the Corvallis area, people that heard from friends from Corvallis. The caveat is that even though Corvallis is local, it's a university town, right? So we have people from different states and also different countries, who try our wine, and like it and follow, so. And I think that's why people connect with the brand regardless of where they're coming from, because everything goes back to sharing time. So it doesn't matter what segment of the market you are, who is your, what is your culture, what is your career. We all want to gather, we all want to spend time together. So that's kind of being, at the root of what we do with the brand.
Yeah, and then we measure everything on social media. We use social media for advertising. We use the Oregon Wine Press as well. We have radio ads sometimes. We use different things. I think the future for many of the advertising or reaching out people will be social media. But again, so like Doris said, I will say that probably our business is run by our consumer. Most of them are women, and that's kind of actually what I expected, because in many times that we will go to a different party or celebration, you will see that at the beginning everyone is drinking wine, but after the 1 hour or 2 hours, you'll see that most of the guy will go to beer or hard liquors, and then you will see women most of the time just keeping with wine. So and there's a bad conception about the women only do white wine. It's just beer.
Yeah, that's wrong. Women
totally
want to be. That's true. Women want to consume good wines
and full body. I mean, it's just
yeah. And I'm willing to spend. So this is interesting for me. Is like when I see magazines, wine magazines, for the most part, they're catered for men. In terms of the advertising, even the fonts, the colors, what they are. But actually, the fastest growing market, it's women. Women, we have the purchasing power, and some brands are overlooking that, and we're giving away this to people. But I want people to realize, women are a huge part of the market, and they want to learn. So we like, and it's hard right now because we're in the middle of the pandemic, right? So there's a lot of stuff. We opened our tasting room 3 months before the pandemic. So there's a lot of things that we had planned.
Take that,
but
pandemic.
Part of our idea of the brand is kind of take away some of this mysteriousness and have a more educational approach. And this is my academic side. It's like, let's come and learn about wines. Let's try these 3 wines. What do you like? And I think it's Juan Pablo always say, when people say, what is the best wine? He say, the one that you like. Ultimately, it's to what people, but let's help people figure it out. What they like. So our idea long term, hopefully when the pandemic it's over, when we have more options to do, is bring back that educational side so people can learn. And when we open, we receive feedback from several customers that say it's so intimidating sometimes to go to a tasting room. And I have felt that here I'm at home, I can ask all the questions that I want, and that's been part of our philosophy. Is like, come, you don't know about wine? Come, learn more. We're gonna teach you. It's easy, it's easier, it doesn't have to be complicated, and that's been part of our brand as well. So it's to bring newer consumers, right? And there's a growing also population of Latinos and other communities that are also willing to get, to try, and so we also want to reach out, and as I say, I'm from Puerto Rico. This is not part of our culture, but we love wines. And then when he goes there, he goes to all these events where there's all these wine connoisseurs in Puerto Rico, but growing up, that was not the case. So the segment in some countries that before may not have been big consumer is also growing. So we're paying attention to those segments of the population that there's a lot of potential to grow.
And something that we didn't mention, but charity, which is something that I love with the brand. We collaborate with many different charities, and we provide wines, we donate money. is the famous payback and pay forward thing. It's just I love that idea that I can do it. Many times we do it with Silver Ridge, but sometimes you have to go through many different doors in order to say, can we just donate? I'll do it with my own brand. I don't mind to do it. I love the idea. I mean, we've been helped from day one when we came here, and I don't mind to help any other people. I think that's kind of the right thing to do. The first of all, pay back and for what we got already, and pay forward for what we'll get in the future. So.
All right, so we talked a little bit about 2020 earlier. Obviously, no one's favorite year to reflect on. But I'm curious. You've talked a bit about the way it's affected you already. Tell me about the effects of the pandemic on your work and on the industry that you saw, and how you sort of see yourselves coming out of the pandemic and your business coming out of the pandemic.
Well, I mean, it's a pandemic, and first time that probably everyone is going through something like that. It's been complicated for me in the case I worry about people, I worry about my friends, my family, and now affect my family down in Argentina. I have family in Italy, so it's everyone being affected. And it's just so many different ways to look at the pandemic, how you've been affected. Because you will be affected on the emotional side, on the health side, on the professional side. The winery didn't stop. We didn't get shut down. The tasting room got shut down, which is actually that's burned. But we were able to do deliveries, and we got a lot of great support from local people, and that's something that I love from Oregon, and I hope sometime Argentina will go the same way, that support local businesses. And without that support, last year will be a really sad year, and it's still sad, but you can see that actually now, I mean, January was probably the saddest month that we had. And I believe probably everyone, after we celebrate New Year, we probably thought that will be a new page. And January became the 13th month of 2020, and nothing changed. And they got so really depressed, and sales didn't move. But then February changed. I think the weather changed. We got more people vaccinated, more. I mean, even the government sent more money. So things that actually we're lucky that actually we have a business in the U.S., especially in Oregon. That if you have business probably in Europe right now or in Argentina, which actually they didn't get the support. So, and the professional side, it's hard. It's still hard because you can't do tastings anymore inside the winery. Most of the reps, they come and they say, "Can I try the wine?" No, we don't allow anyone to come in the winery. And even myself, when I'm doing the tasting, even barrel tasting, I'll have the mask hanging from one ear, the wine tip, and doing this, the whole thing gets involved. And even sometimes, believe it or not, the mask sometimes gets, you get the smell of the mask sometimes in your nose, and then you go to the wine. Everything is weird. It's just, I'm not complaining because we're healthy, we still have a business, people like the wine. But it is weird, and then for us, it's been that we've been living in a bubble for over a year, and I mean that's why probably we planned to do this last year, and it happened because we couldn't find a time that will feel safe enough to say, okay, let's go and do it, because we know if we will have to be inside, and you know indoor spaces are not safe or safe enough unless everyone is vaccinated. I don't know. So Doris probably have a better picture on the social side of that.
You know, I think that the pandemic, there's another component that is not talked here, is that it has a tremendous impact on women's careers and jobs. So, and in terms of the care, children's at home. Actually, in Oregon, most of the unemployment caused by the pandemic has been affected, predominantly women, right? So that is, and then if we talk about the women growing, an important segment of the market, right? So that is that, right? Like at the macro level, you have that impact, right? At the personal level, this was very hard on me, right? Like when this happened, as I said, we had 3 months, of the tasting room open when this happened. And we suddenly were shut down of the business. You have to figure it out. You have employees, how you gonna handle that? You have suddenly 2 kids at home, plus I was teaching online and educating them. And so JP works in Eugene, right? So for our family, it had a tremendous impact, right? And he's great with the kids and he shared a lot of their responsibilities. And I'm sure we're the only ones, right? And then harvest happened in the middle of a pandemic, right? All the stress, and you trying to keep your family safe, your business safe, your work safe. The agricultural workers have been, badly hit by the pandemic, right? Disproportionately, they have had the largest percent of cases in Oregon, right? So there's an impact to the industry, but there's the human side of things, like how this impact families. But there's also the blessings, I think, because we've been telling you, we've been doing all these things so busy, that it actually have allowed sometimes to think a little bit. So to envision the wine club and how this is gonna look like, we're still working on it. We have a couple of other projects that we now had the time. So in a way, give us some pause. But I have to say that we have been very lucky having the Corvallis community. When the pandemic happened and the businesses start closing, local organizations develop and support for all the organizations, and they will link and promote different businesses, including our own, and the Corvallis community have show up for us. And I'm never gonna forget. So if before like the Corvallis community, after the pandemic, they are home now. Like I feel taken care in my community as a business owner, and that was great to see, right? That it's not just that, yeah, we're having fun, we're there, but bad times happen and people were still there. People were still like, Doris, are you still doing deliveries? We want to support your business. So what's that personal connection, texting, hey, are you still doing deliveries? Because I want to continue supporting, regardless if I need wine or not, and that for me, that was very, very meaningful, very meaningful. So the pandemic also showed the beauty of the community that we live.
So one last question for you, and JP, I know you have an interesting perspective on this, having been on the wine board and seen the state from a different perspective than others, but what do you see as you look ahead for Oregon wine, and what are the I guess the first part is, what are the biggest changes you've seen in the industry, and what do you see as you look ahead for the industry?
Well, we have so the industry is growing and growing, and we know that already. And I see there will be pretty soon an issue because right now Pinot Noir is actually our driver. So the driving the whole industry is just Pinot Noir. And I see a problem also that I see already with Argentina, because they started with the Malbec a little earlier than here with the Pinot Noir. And Argentina is facing a challenge of, okay, what else you got? Love your Malbec, but what else you got there? And people over here is also, okay, I love the Pinot, but what other one you have? And most of the wine is in the upper part of the Willamette Valley. You go and do tasting and say, okay, this is a Pinot. And people will say, okay, what other one you have? Another Pinot. And another Pinot. Okay, so people will say, what other variety? What else we have in Oregon? And I think we're at the point where we need to be looking for or diversifying the portfolio of what we can offer in Oregon. And that's what something that earlier Doris mentioned, the other AVAs. And I'm really in love. with many, but the Rogue Valley is my place to go to, and I love the quality down there. I love the terroir, the grower, the place, and they have every single variety that you can think of. And unfortunately, it may not be available, or then can you afford it? You cannot afford it. But we had to look right now for a brother for Malbec, for Pinot Noir, which I believe we have a shot at Malbec, and Malbec could become the big brother for Pinot Noir. And this is something because there's not a lot of challenge, there's not a lot of competition beside Argentina. So there's no, for example, if you look Pinot Noir, you have California, which is they have good Pinot Noir. You got Burgundy, which is the place for Pinot Noir. We have the Wilaya Valley, but Malbec is only Argentina. No one being claiming to be the place of Malbec in the U.S. And neither California, which California is way ahead on us, or Washington State. So we have a shot there. Unfortunately, Malbec is still growing, really small, even smaller than Tempranillo. You can say Tempranillo. Say
Tempranillo.
Okay, there you go. That's for you, my friend. So we need to start diversifying, and that's the idea of our brand, is to show, and this is actually true with, we go to Puerto Rico, like she mentioned, and I say, like, the guys over there are really into wine, and I thought, well, it would be rum and beer, because no, there's a lot of club of guys that have a lot of money. I don't care about spending any amount of money.
Women.
And women, really, but the one they unfortunately told me they were all men, all male. And so they said, I never tried Cabernet Franc from Oregon. This is beautiful, this is amazing. I never tried Malbec from Oregon. I never tried Cabernet Sauvignon. It's so and so and so and so. So we're doing a great job on the Pinot, and that's something that I learned from the Oregon Wine Board, which is with the Oregon brand. So, and the Oregon brand will relate it to any variety that we can make into high quality. The key is quality. If you can come out with quality, that's it. That's not a variety that we're gonna show out. You're gonna outside, it's like if you have a friend coming over, you're gonna show out the best of you have in your house. You don't wanna show something that it may look bad to you. So I think that's something that, and already see it happening, but small steps. I mean, like we all depend on the Pinot, and Pinot is gonna be king forever. I mean, Pinot is gonna be Oregon for a long, long time, but we need to diversify. There's more than Pinot in the state, and we got great land, great terroir, great grower, and great winemaker, and great wineries to actually support all the varietals.
That's all the questions that I have for the two of you. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we need to talk about that we didn't talk about already?
Well, I want to add to what JP said in terms of the branding, in terms of the variety. Also recognize that Oregon is changing as a state, demographically, internationally, and the branding of the wines have also to caught up with that and realize that we need to target other segments of the market that can be overlooked, and I think that would be great. And again, I think that what you're doing with this project is great, and having this collection of the wine, history, I think is great. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you guys for watching us. It's been a long one, but you actually get to see what's been almost 18 years. And I don't know, we'll come back for more with, and hopefully if we get to do this in the future again in probably 5-10 years, we'll be talking hopefully about our kids working with us and everything. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. This was great. Thanks for your time and your stories, and go and let you off the hook.